In today's Locked On Pelicans, I'll tell you the one thing I don't want to see the Pelicans do over their final 5 games. And no, it's not them winning another game. It's the Monday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Monday, and we've got a lot to cover. A couple of games over the weekend for the Pelicans playing the Lakers on Friday, the Bucks on Sunday, which no one played in that game. But you saw some good performances, and we'll break those down. But I'm going to tell you the one thing I don't want to see the Pelicans do over these final now 5 games remaining, or 4 games, whatever the number is. And that's quit. And that's actually tank. They were winning in the fourth quarter against the Bucks. Did it make you mad? It didn't make me mad. And I'll tell you why in today's show. We're also going to look at Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida, a scouting report on him because I think he'd be a great fit for New Orleans. I want to talk generally about the end of the regular season, both in the playoffs and the tanking race, because it's kind of fun. We'll break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. So let's get into this. Pelicans losing to the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday, 111-107 after losing to the Lakers the game before here. Pelicans taking Jose Alvarado out of this one after a very good game against the Lakers because the Bucks playing on the second night of a back-to-back. Now, Jose was hurt. Bucks playing on the second night of a back-to-back were basically resting everyone. No Giannis, no Bobby Portis. Damian Lillard's been out for a little while here. They were just resting guys, but they want to win games. You know, they're in the playoffs and kind of trying to look good here, and they have a couple of young guys that want to go out and kind of make a name for themselves or figure some things out. So this looked like, though, while you might not know many of the players on either team, that it was going to probably be interesting to see how this could end up. And you're probably, if you're rooting for the Pelicans to tank, you probably looked at this game, saw Giannis isn't playing, all that stuff, and were like, oh no, Pels might win. And look, the Pelicans were competitive in this game. The first half was close with the lead change kind of going back and forth. There were 18 lead changes in this one here. And the Pelicans led for most of the third quarter, at least the middle part of the third quarter, and even had the lead in the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, when they took that lead, were you one of the people being like, oh no, absolutely not, don't do this? And if you are, I completely understand. But here's the thing, I wasn't one of those people. They took the lead, and I kind of liked that, because I want to see this team not quit. So, you know, when it comes to the discussion about tanking or beating a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, while the Pelicans are tanking, shutting down Zion, shutting down CJ, amongst the other legitimate injuries, and those guys are legitimately injured too that they have, they're tanking when you do something like that. Because there's a lot that Zion could have played for, in my opinion, to play out the remainder of the regular season. But they knew that would help him win games. That's not in their best interest, so they decided to shut him down. But any of the players playing don't think about the draft pick, right? Antonio Reeves, Jamal Cain, Carlo Makovich, Lester Quinones, any of those guys aren't thinking about the draft pick. They're thinking about their careers, their future. They want to go out, they want to play hard, they want to play well, and they would like to win basketball games. And I don't fault them for that whatsoever, even if that means the Pelicans get an extra win here and there, which would legitimately hurt them in the tanking standings. We'll look more at that in the third segment of today's show. But I want them to go out and compete because some of these guys, not all of them, are going to be on the team next season. You would imagine that Antonio Reeves is going to be on the team next season. So I want him to go out and play, and ideally play well. 23 points on the night on 8 of 18 shooting. More importantly, 5 of 9 from 3. That 3-point shot has been falling for him recently, and he's been playing much better. look, if this team is planning to push for the playoffs next year, to go out and compete, you're going to need more three-point shooting. And Antonio Reeves is a guy that can give that to you. Him playing well, getting into a groove, and building some confidence going into next year is pretty important to me, frankly. I want to see that. That's someone I would like to see succeed on this team because he's pretty fun and he just fits. That's a useful guy. Is he a starter? Maybe not. But is he a useful role player that you are going to need someone like him on a cheap 2-year, second-round contract like that? Absolutely. So he has a breakout game and he beats a team that the Pelicans don't want to beat. It's both good and bad. And I'm cool with these guys competing. And the Pelicans did compete in this game. To Willie Green's credit, for whatever you think about him, the team has never quit despite who's out there on the court. They might be outmanned. They might not play particularly well, but they've never quit. They do go out and they compete. And there is something to be said for that, in my opinion. So Reeves was great in this one. Yves Missi getting some run going, 18 points, 12 rebounds for him. 9 on the defensive glass is important. You're also seeing him really show off some of the playmaking. We're going to do kind of a whole episode about this. 3 assists in this game. He's done a very good job of keeping the ball moving. And if they had shut him down earlier in the year or recently, so that he doesn't need to play anymore because they're worried about him helping them win games and things, well, you wouldn't see some of this growth from him when it comes to the passing. And that's something that I didn't know he had in his game, in his bag at all. But you're seeing him put up more and more assists and make the right reads, make the right types of passes, and helping elevate his teammates. And to get that out of the center position, that's kind of lagniappe, in my opinion. So overall, I like what we're seeing from that. You've got to play hard and you've got to compete, one, to just make shots, which equal the assists and stuff. So overall, again, I like what we're seeing from this group. This is kind of a best case scenario of a loss. Close, you competed, but you just weren't good enough in the end. And that's what you want. You're not doing the weird things that Toronto has been doing or some of these other teams, right? Like what the 76ers have done feels unethical. The Utah Jazz have been unethical for 2 years. I want the Pelicans to ethically tank. You're shutting guys down. Don't get me wrong. They're tanking. We're not going to say it's not that. But at least go out and try and win and compete, and the team is doing that. Whereas you look at Philly and some of those other teams, no, they're absolutely not trying to do that whatsoever, right? Bruce Brown Jr. putting up 16 points and 9 assists, showing that different side of his game, maybe helps his trade value, and it would be a sign and trade kind of thing. Or Lester Quinones on a 2-way deal, putting up 17 points on 4 of 5 shooting from 3. He was someone that has done pretty well in limited minutes here in New Orleans. You have Keon Brooks Jr., who could be cheap wing depth, and he rebounds at a pretty high rate. 13 points, 10 rebounds for him. Now, I'm going to give you the normal disclaimer of this late in the season. Early April basketball is funky, y'all. You going up against a Bucks team that started Taurean Prince, Kyle Kuzma, Brook Lopez, Gary Trent Jr., and Kevin Porter Jr., right? Guys you've never heard of are getting significant minutes here, right? Pete Nance, Larry Nance Jr.'s younger brother, and particularly the greatest player in here, and has kind of been barely in the league for a couple of years now. But he played almost 14 minutes in this one. Some of the guys that they're playing are pretty significant. So they're getting out there. You're competing against not a great lineup. So don't read too much into this where we look at this and be like, oh, Quinones is a shooter. He's going to go out and score all those things. Someone's got to put up points on a bad team. And these guys are doing it now, but at least they're doing that versus not, right? Even Carlo going out and shooting 5 threes. Not a good shooting night from him, 1 of 5. I like that he's playing a bunch and that they're trying to give him that run to earn those spots. And if they win a game, because Carlo Makovich plays particularly well, and that helps him in the future, I'm all for it at this point. Still like them not to win, but I do not want to see them give up. I want to see them competing going forward because I think it's important for these young players and building the right type of habits, culture kind of stuff, even if that's a little bit overblown. So coming up next, let's switch to a little bit of draft coverage. Y'all been watching Walter Clayton Jr. in the tournament because that dude is lighting it up. He looks incredible. Let's break down his game and do a scouting report on him. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's basically your personal finance CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. So you could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and you start building wealth. I need all that in one spot. If I got to go to multiple different apps and sites, I'm just not going to do it. But when you can link everything and put them in one place, you really start to see your financial picture in a way that you never have before. And you might find some surprising insights. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. That adds up really quickly. But now I can budget smarter and save even more. And if you're managing money with your partner, Monarch Money makes it smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress in your relationship. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. And don't forget about the free daily Locked On Pelicans newsletter. You can subscribe over at lockedondaily.com. We're running some promotions on that pretty soon. They're not already into effect. Let me see for y'all. And that's, I don't know, something that's just pretty cool. We'll talk about it in tomorrow's show, but a way to just win some stuff by subscribing. Nothing wrong with that, right? It's free. Win a bunch of things. You want to build your dream theater from Best Buy? That's one of the, well, I'll tell you tomorrow. Let me pull it up. I did not prepare for that as well as I should have here. I'm sorry. All right, let's look at Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida, because he has been lighting it up. Back-to-back 30-point games in the Elite Eight and the Final Four against Texas Tech and Auburn. And he has looked fantastic. And Walter Clayton Jr., senior guard out of Florida, was once looked at as a second-round pick, but this is someone who is solidly in the first round now, potentially going to get into the lottery depending how the title game tonight goes and how the combine and all of that is going to go for him, because he has looked really incredible. On the season, he's averaging 18.5 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and 1.2 steals. He has shot about 39.2% on almost 8 attempts per game. He is a career 38.8% shooter from three. Started at Iona, then transferred to Florida, where he has done a very good job. And now he's got Florida as the lead guy back in the title game for the first time since I think it's 2007 when they won back-to-back titles. He has looked incredible for them. Against Auburn, one of the top teams in the country all year long, 34 points on 6 of 10 shooting from three. In a comeback win, a bigger comeback win over Texas Tech in the Elite Eight, 30 points. He went 4 of 6 from three, including hitting an insane game winner against them, I believe, against Connecticut earlier on in the tournament in the second round. This dribbling away from the basket makes it. He's looked really good. A little bit on the older side at 22 years old, but at 6'2", 6'3", has enough good size for a guard. And one of the things is I went back and watched a lot of his film over the past couple of years. And his first 3 years in college, the fourth-year senior right now, he was really used more as an off-ball guard. He had not been kind of the lead guy on a team. Off-ball, running around. And it worked because he is an elite shooter. This dude's about as good of a shooter as it gets. There isn't a single type of shot that he doesn't seem very comfortable taking, right? He can do it pulling up off of ball screens, and you've seen more of that this year. He can do it as a catch and shoot guy coming off of a pin down or a screen, springs him to the three-point line, catch the ball, turn your shoulder, square up, shoot, make it. He can do it coming off dribble handoffs. He can do it navigating screens, whatever it might be. He really has that in his game and feels very comfortable with it. This year, he's 40% off of catch and shoot threes and an absurd 37.1% off the dribble, where that's a little bit harder. That kind of self-creation is something that the Pelicans desperately need. And so as he's become more of a lead guard this year, that shooting ability is really important. That means teams can't go under screens on him. You can't sag off of him. And that really puts pressure on a defense. If you were to pair him in a pick and roll with Zion Williamson like that, teams are still going to probably play some drop coverage there, try and throw two at Zion to take away the pick and roll, even though Zion's not like the best pick and roll guy. They don't use him enough in the pick and roll. And that's going to leave Walter Clayton Jr. open for three. And how's that going to go for the opponent? he's just going to have space to take and make a three, and that's not going to be what anyone wants to give up. So now that he's kind of become that lead guard, and you've seen his assist numbers jump up to 4.1 per game this season, that's a career high for him. It's been impressive to see that the scoring has gotten just as good or better than it was before. When you're looking to set teammates up, that can naturally mean you don't have the ball in your hands once you're passing. So the scoring to still improve, and the creation for others still improve. He's a much more complete guard than he was just a year ago. And for Florida's coach to trust him in the way that he did, Todd Graham has done a very good job of kind of developing his players and putting them in position to succeed. But I like that if he were to come into the NBA and potentially, let's think about him on the Pelicans here, this is not someone that is going to be your lead guard right away. Right? You still have Jose. You still have CJ. You know, when DeJounte Murray comes back, he's kind of your lead point guard. They're probably going to look to acquire one in some capacity in the offseason. But he can come in and do some of that, but still then just go back to the off-ball stuff, the catch-and-shoot guy who's an elite shooter. And while you need more shooting, your guys can't be one-dimensional. That's been a little bit of the problem, I think, when it comes to someone like Jordan Hawkins, right? You know, he just hasn't shown the other stuff that you want to see from his game out there, and hasn't just shown that he's more than just a shooter. You look at a guy like Walter Clayton Jr., and he is more than just a shooter. And I think that's a pretty important thing and something to keep in mind with him, that, you know, if the Pelicans fall, I don't know if he's going to be, say, like the 8th overall pick, and that might be a stretch, but would the Pelicans potentially trade up into the first round later to get him, depending on what they need? You know, there's some potential for that, I think. And when you look at him, you know, at 6'3", he's a little bit undersized, you know, for a 2-guard there, but the size is still not bad. And he looks overall good. And he, like, the dude's an athlete too. This is someone who had multiple football offers as well, from Florida, Notre Dame, Tennessee. And he just wanted to play basketball and kind of leaned into that whole thing. So he, you know, I don't know, something about that says something to me, that if you're like a highly recruited football player too, but you focus on basketball, you know where that's going to be. And I don't know, kind of like that about him here. And the dude's just, look, about as clutch as it gets. And you've seen that in the tournament here. And having someone that can close games out for New Orleans sounds great. You know, there's a couple of issues here with him though too. He is not a good defender, like borderlining bad defender. Now, maybe it's that he's using all of his energy on offense, so you just don't have it on the defensive side of the ball. That's a very valid and truthful thing to it. You know, for a lot of players, he could be one of those guys. But you need to play defense if you're going to want to earn minutes under, potentially, we don't know yet, head coach Willie Green. So that's something to kind of keep in mind with him too. He's not an above the rim finisher. He's not good unless he's just shooting the ball. Makes him a little bit more one-dimensional than you like. He's not going to be dunking. He's not going to be laying the ball in. He doesn't have a ton in his bag to like get to the rim and score that way. Like, he's a shooter, and that's how he's going to get it done. And some of the decision-making has not been great from him this season at times. So while he's played a lot of lead guard for Florida, he's not like the, you know, an NBA point guard. And if you're running him in there, you can do it in stretches, I'm sure, but that also might leave a whole lot more to be desired and could lead to some issues and bad play, and that's going to lead to losses and things like that. And if that's not what we're hoping to see here, well, that's going to kind of be a problem. So does he fit? Does he not? I think when you kind of look at the negatives with him, it's a little bit of a question of how that might go. But there's a lot to like about him with the way that he plays and what you see from him here, because this tournament run from him has truly been pretty impressive and pretty special. I'm really looking forward to this game tonight for the title, to see what he's going to do against a really tough Houston defense as well. What a Final Four it's been overall. Like, this tournament, when it goes chalk like this and you're just getting good teams playing good teams, yeah, you miss the excitement of a Cinderella, but you get just exciting, good basketball. And as someone who's not in love with the college basketball game, because I watch so much NBA and to me it looks terrible by comparison, this has been very exciting to watch this year. So coming up next, there's some exciting stuff to watch in the NBA too, even in the tanking standings, but also you see what's going on in the West. Let's talk about that. That's coming up here next, and how it's going to matter to the Pelicans next season. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel has given new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. So right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. It's $250 to bet on whatever you want. It's free money right there if your first $5 bet wins. What I love about FanDuel is it makes it just all easy, whether it's picking the Pelicans to hopefully lose or Florida to win the title, because I'm believing in their momentum here. Whatever it might be, they just make it easy. So whether it's 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. And after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance at an even bigger win. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And go check out Locked On Saints. They're launching some new shows over at Locked On Saints. Saints Squad. Multiple of your favorite people breaking down the Saints twice a week on Locked On Saints. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join them on YouTube. Ross Jackson's going to be doing some awesome new stuff over there that I'm excited to see. They are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's wrap up the show. We're going to go a little bit wide lens here on the NBA, because if you've been tuning out this season, because look, the Pelicans are bad, right? There's no getting around that. We are looking at a potentially 60-loss season here. That is in play for New Orleans. They're second worst in the Western Conference by far right now. Yeah, he might not be paying attention, and I totally get it. But it's been kind of fun in the West. If you look at some of these teams right now and what they are doing in terms of games behind the #1 seed, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all the exact same games. They're basically tied when it comes to record. They're all 46 and 32. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that are 46 and 32. You also have the Denver Nuggets that are tied in the loss column with them. They have 47 wins, so they're in the 4th seed right now. But things could change on a dime here, and you could see the Denver Nuggets in the play-in tournament. That is looking like a very realistic possibility. Even if they end up winning out, that could potentially happen here, depending on how some of these other teams go. That's wild to me that could happen here. And so the mid-tier of the NBA Western Conference playoff race is fun. Look, you have Oklahoma City, who is just by far running away with the best record in the league. You have the Houston Rockets, who are the only other team to have clinched a full-on playoff berth right now. Then you have the Lakers at 48 and 30. They're only 2 games up on that group that are, in that kind of 5 through 8 spot, really 4 through 8 spot. Things go wrong for them, that could change instantly too. It is going to be a wild end to the playoff run for all of these teams, and it's going to be really interesting. And you could see teams going from 8th in the West to 5th in the West literally on a single night is how close it is. When you look at it, the Dallas Mavericks, are treading water at 10. Sacramento's treading water at 9. Who knows what's going on with Memphis, though they've stabilized a little bit. But you have Phoenix lurking there too, though they're a little bit further behind and looking like they're going to miss the postseason, which would be wild, given their situation there and the players that they have. It's fun in there, but it shows you how competitive it is. Even the Pelicans being fully healthy, where would they have fit into that this year? All of those teams at 46 and 32 are looking at 50-win seasons, or trying to. They play each other a good bit, so they won't all get there. Was this team ceiling a 53-win season, 52-win season, which you really would have needed to be assured of a playoff spot? I'm not sure. Can you get a guy that in the draft that helps you get to there? That's, an open question, I think, a little bit as well. But it just means that, if you don't think you can make this team significantly better, and look, the injury to DeJounte Murray is going to linger into next season. We'll see about Trey. We'll see about Herb Jones. All of that's a factor into this. You need to make sure you are doing the right thing, because you could easily be 10th next year with a good team and a good record, or you could be the Phoenix Suns and out of the playoffs, and that's not going to do you any good. The Pelicans kind of need to figure out and do some real looking in the mirror of who they are and figuring out what they want to do and try and improve on that or go in the other direction, right? Like this is a moment that they need to start being very introspective on with this state of this franchise. It could go either way. It could absolutely go either way if they're going to be good or not next year. But the fact that we don't know yet, and they're the ones with all the data that do this, professionally more so than I do, they need to kind of choose a direction. And we'll see what that is. It's going to be really interesting. On the flip side of this, the tanking standings in the NBA are also kind of tight. I think New Orleans is going to end up at 4. That really seems to be what it's going to be. They still have a 2-game cushion on the Philadelphia 76ers right now. And there's not a whole lot of games to go here for any of these teams. So that helps. And the Pelicans schedule is tougher than the Sixers are with 4 games left. You have 2 for sure losses, right? The Milwaukee Bucks, and even if OKC's resting their guys, I think you're going to still see them beat New Orleans. Brooklyn is going to be tough for the next game, and then Miami after that is going to also be a little bit tough. But both those teams, Brooklyn doesn't have anything to play for, but they aren't really anywhere close enough. Oh, they're close enough to New Orleans here. They are 4 games back, so they would need to lose out, and the Pelicans would need to win out for them to really trade places. So you can maybe even beat Brooklyn and be fine when it comes to this sort of thing if you go 0-3 on the other 3 games there. Philly is looking terrible. They've lost 11 straight. But there's a 2-game cushion there. I don't know if they're going to win another game, though. I truthfully don't know if they are going to win another game. Where was their strength of schedule? It's 26. So it's easier, right? Pelicans have the 13th toughest. The Philly has the 26th easiest. So they play the Wizards. That's going to be an interesting game because the Wizards stink. You play the Miami Heat. Heat need to win that one. That's probably a loss. Chicago Bulls have been playing better, but it could go either way. And then the Atlanta Hawks, who are not also particularly great, and that could go either way for them too. If Philly wins 1 game, I think New Orleans is going to clinch basically the 4th worst record in the league and the 4th best lottery odds. That's likely what it's going to be. It's really going to maybe be coming down to Philly and Washington. And Washington knows they need to lose that game too because they're only 2 games up on Charlotte for that 2nd spot. So it's really interesting, in my opinion, in the playoff race, but also pretty interesting when it comes to it in the tanking race as well with some of the teams and what we're seeing. But we're getting to the point where we're about to see kind of teams locked into where they are. New Orleans will not finish worse than 5th. It would be beyond shocking to me if that was the case. But I'd like 4th best odds over 5th best odds because what Philly's doing is stinky. We don't like that. We don't support that. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. I appreciate y'all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back with y'all tomorrow. We'll talk some more draft and a ton of other stuff around this team. It's going to get pretty interesting pretty soon. I think we can bank on that. See y'all next time.